Hello everyone and welcome back to my second channel. Welcome back to Jack in the Books. Today I've got some books that I would like to talk to you about because it is September and these are the books that I would love to read this month. This month I'm going with a humble 5 books that I would love to read. I know sometimes I do like massive, very unrealistic lists in these videos, but this month I'm determined to read all 5 of these. So let's talk about them, shall we? Firstly, we have Best of Friends by Kamala Shamsie. Now, I went to a talk in New York at the PEN America World Voices Festival, and one of the talks they had was about friendship. And I was super intrigued, so I went along and I ended up buying every single book that they spoke about on that panel. You had Mona Awad, you had Sayaka Murata, and you had Yeon Lee, but you also had Kamala Shamsie. And Kamala Shamsie's the first book that I read of Kamala Shamsie's was Home Fire. There it is. I read this during my degree and it was one of my favourite books that I read in my time at Durham, and so when I found out that she had a new book being released, I was like, I have to read that. It's described as a profound novel about friendship. I loved it to pieces. That's by Madeline Miller, as in the Madeline Miller, like Song of Achilles Madeline Miller, and if Madeline Miller says it's good, I mean, sign me up. The story of a lifelong friendship and the forces that bring it to the breaking point. Zara and Mariam have been best friends since childhood in Karachi, even though, or maybe because, they are unlike in nearly every way. Yet they never speak of the differences in their backgrounds or their values, not even after the fateful night when a moment of adolescent impulse upends their plans for the future. 3 decades later, Zara and Mariam have grown into powerful women who have each cut a distinctive path through London. But when 2 troubling figures from their past resurface, they must finally confront their bedrock differences and find out whether their friendship can survive. Thought-provoking, compassionate, and full of unexpected turns, Best of Friends offers a riveting take on an age-old question: does principle or loyalty make for the better friend? Isn't that just such a great blurb? It's described as urgent and explosive. I just thought that the way that Kamala Shamsie spoke about friendship was so astute and interesting and intriguing, and I was like, if she's going to unpack all of that in these pages, I want to do that with her. I want to come along for the ride, and so Best of Friends is a book I have been very excited about, and also this cover is just gorgeous. Next up, we have Penance by Eliza Clark. Now, Eliza Clark is an author I adore. I've only read one of her books, but it's a book that I just literally cannot shut up about. It's called Boy Parts, and it is about a woman who is an erotic photographer, and she kind of lures men in to take pictures of them and then is very violent towards them. And the book is crazy, it's unhinged. A lot of people describe it as like the female American Psycho, and I get that, it's kind of like a reversal of American Psycho, so it's very interesting, and she has such a confident, self-assured voice, especially for a debut author. Like, she knows what she's doing and she does it immaculately, and so I'm very intrigued about her next book. This is Penance, very recently published, and I'm trying to find where the blurb is. I think it's on this page here. Everyone knows the end of these stories first. The beginning and middle are what you want to hear. So I think it's about kind of like a true crime situation where like people often hear like, oh, this person was murdered by XYZ and that's the story. But I think what this book is concerned with is like, what happens before that moment? Who is the person who has been harmed in this scenario? It's been nearly a decade since the horrifying murder of 16-year-old Joan Wilson, and the events of that terrible night are now being published for the first time. That story is Penance, a dizzying feat of masterful storytelling, where Eliza Clark maneuvers us through accounts from the inhabitants of this small seaside town of Crow-on-Sea. Placing us in the capable hands of journalist Alec Z. Zarelli, Clark allows him to construct what he claims is the definitive account of the murder and what led up to it. Built on hours of interviews with witnesses and family members, painstaking historical research, and most notably correspondence with the killers themselves, the result is a riveting snapshot of lives rocked by tragedy and a town left in turmoil. An utterly chilling, compulsive story of a murder among teenagers on the eve of the historic Brexit vote by a major new voice in British fiction. Isn't that so interesting? What a very specific date to pick, and such a historic event for everyone, but I feel like for my generation, it's going to just be one of the things that defines the future for us, really. And so I'm very intrigued to read a book set on the eve of Brexit. That is Penance. Also, like, you can't unfortunately do this, but this part of the cover is like textured, and it's just so satisfying. Like, the other day I was sitting at my desk and I was like typing, and every now and then I would just be like, I have to just feel that one more time. But before I move on to the next book, I just wanted to let you know that today's video is very kindly brought to you by Squarespace. Squarespace is an all-in-one website builder where you can set up your website or online store. The best news is there is no coding experience required or detailed web design knowledge. You can use their amazing range of templates as the perfect starting point to give you a platform to launch yourself from. You can customize it, make something completely your own, and bring the vision that is currently in your head to life, to reality. There's a blogging feature so you can share kind of what you're up to behind the scenes, and also great analytical tools so you know what you should be making more of because an audience is responding well to it. If you want to test it out, you can actually head to squarespace.com for a free trial. And then when you're ready to launch your beautiful new website, you can head to squarespace.com/jackinthebooks and use the code jackinthebooks to get 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain, you lucky sausage. Please do send me your website when it's done because I would love to see them and have a little nosy, because one thing about me, nosy. More nosy than Pinocchio over here. But yeah, let me know when you've made your website. I would love to see it. And thank you so much to Squarespace for sponsoring this series of my monthly TBRs. Another book that I have a proof copy of is this one. It's called Mrs. S. It's by Kay Patrick. And when did this come out? June 8th. And I went to an event at 4th Estate at HarperCollins where they showcased a bunch of their new releases, and this was the one that totally caught my eye. It sounded so great, and I know that my friend Dakota read this and devoured it and loved it, and she is someone whose taste I trust very highly, so yeah, I can't wait to read this as well and then discuss it with her. There's nothing better than when your friend has read a book that you've read and you can just like nerd out about it. So this is the blurb. Powerfully sensual and sublimely stylish, Mrs. S is a tale of queer love that smoulders with the heat of summer. In an elite English boarding school where the girls kiss the marble statue of the famous dead author who used to walk the halls, a young Australian woman arrives to take up the antiquated role of matron. Within this landscape of immense privilege in which the girls can sense the slightest weakness in those around them, she finds herself unsure of her role, her accent, and her body. That is until she meets Mrs. S, the headmaster's wife, a woman who is her polar opposite, assured, sophisticated, a paragon of femininity. Over the course of a long, restless heatwave, the matron finds herself irresistibly drawn ever closer into Mrs. S's world, and their unspoken desire blooms into an illicit affair of electric intensity. Oh, I love reading about that, like, really intense spark of passion. I think it's going to be so great. And I love that this is set in the summertime. I think September is the perfect time to read this. But as the summer begins to fade, both women know that a choice must be made. Kay Patrick's portrait of the butch experience is revelatory, exploring the contested terrain of our bodies, our desires, and the constraints society places around both. Mrs. S marks the arrival of a major new literary talent, unlike any other. This is giving me dark academia, but in the summertime, as summer fades into the autumn, and I just can't wait. There's a quote on the back. This is what it is to be wanted. Loving her will be impossible. There is nothing I can do to stop it. Oh, I just get so excited about books like that. This sounds wonderful. So that is very exciting to me. The next book I have is called Brutes, and this is by Diz Tate. Now, I bought this from bookshop.org, and it's a signed copy, which is so cool. That was such a surprise. When I was getting these books ready to film this video, I found that, and I'm buzzing. What a win. Anyways, this is what the book is about. In Falls Landing, Florida, a place built of theme parks, swampy lakes, and scorched... Oh no. I'm gonna get the pronunciation of this flower wrong. Bougainvillea flowers. I don't know a lot about flowers, and I'm really sorry about it, but you get the point. Something sinister lurks in the deep. A gang of 13-year-old girls obsessively orbits around the local preacher's daughter, Sammy. She is mesmerizing, older, and in love with Eddie. But suddenly Sammy goes missing. Where is she? Watching from a distance, they edge ever closer to discovering a dark secret about their fame-hungry town and the cruel cost of a ticket out. What they uncover will continue to haunt them for the rest of their lives. Through a darkly beautiful and brutally compelling lens, Diz Tate captures the violence, horrors, and manic joys of girlhood. Brutes is a novel about the seemingly unbreakable bond in the we of young friendship and the moment it is broken forever. And girlhood really is the thing I think we're all focusing on this summer. Like, after the Barbie movie and the discourse that kind of encouraged, cultural events like the Eras Tour, I feel like girlhood is really at the height of discourse right now. And so I'm intrigued to read another book that kind of centers that. And then finally, this month, I would love to read Letters to My Lena by Franz Kafka. Now, I love the Metamorphosis. This is kind of a trend here in this video. It's either like debut novelists or authors who have published one book that I've absolutely adored. Kafka is, of course, not a debut novelist, but I have read another one of his works that I just found captivating. And so this is Letters to My Lena. I've heard that Kafka's letters are an absolute must-read. So this is a collection of Franz Kafka's letters to his one-time muse, My Lena Jasenka. It's described as an intimate window into the desires and hopes of the 20th century's most prophetic and important writer. Kafka first met My Lena in 1920 when she was translating his early short prose into Czech, and their relationship quickly developed into a deep attachment. Such was his feeling for My Lena that Kafka showed her his diaries, and in doing so, laid bare his heart and his conscience. While at times My Lena's genius for living gave Kafka a new sense of vitality, it ultimately exhausted him, and their relationship was to last little over 2 years. In 1924, Kafka died in a sanatorium near Vienna, while My Lena died in 1944 at the hands of the Nazis, leaving these letters as a moving record of their relationship. Amazing. And how lucky are we that these are even available to us to read? I've heard that the way that Kafka yearns and talks about love and writes to the people closest to him is beautiful and exquisite, and yeah, an absolute must-read. So it's about time that I picked up one of his books, or a collection of his letters, I suppose. I wonder how he would feel if he knew that these had been published and were available for us to read, because I think it really did pour his heart out. So I don't know if I would want people reading my letters to people, but I'm very, very excited about this. So those are my September reads. Thank you so much for watching this video. All the best, stay in touch, have a wonderful day, have a wonderful September, and I will see you very, very soon. Bye-bye!